Inspiration can be defined as a sudden, brilliant, creative, or timely idea. It is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially something creative. As stitchers, we are endlessly inspired by the rainbow reflected in beautiful silks or cotton floss, by the texture or depth of color that can be seen in a piece of hand-dyed fabric. It is in the balance and symmetry of an antique sampler or the elegant flourish at the ends of a French alphabet letter. Ultimately, inspiration can bring us a deeper sense of fulfillment in life. It gives us purpose, a connection to others, and to something greater than ourselves. Inspiration can also be found in our stitching chair. We invite it when we sit there. It can be heard in the whisper of every stitch and glimpsed in the divine space between every breath. Hi, welcome back to episode number 3 of Comfort Stitching. I'm Jackie and I want to welcome you to my FlossTube, where here we're going to talk all about cross-stitching and a lot of things that are of interest to me and inspire me. So today is July 7th, 2024, and I want to thank you once again for returning. If you're returning today, if you're new to me, thank you for giving my channel a try. I continue to have so many of the floss tubers out there, and those of you who have watched recommend my channel, and I appreciate it so much, just so much. Thank you. And the other thing I want to thank you for is all of the amazing comments that you guys share. I really have been overwhelmed, and I'll use the word gobsmacked, it works, by the amount of kind and such thoughtful comments that you leave. It just warms my heart more than you can know, the things that you're sharing with me, and to know that the things that I'm sharing with you have made a difference for you or have somehow positively impacted your life. And I so appreciate that. So I hope you'll keep coming back, like the channel, subscribe, share in all the ways that you can. And hopefully I'll continue to do this for a while. It's been really enjoyable to me to do. I think about what I'm going to talk to you about the next time. So once I get done today, something will come up, a comment that somebody makes, or I'll hear something that inspires me for what I might want to share next. So as you might have gleaned by the introduction to today's video, and I'll tell you, I had no idea I was going to do a new introduction to each one of these, but so far so I am. It was about and is about inspiration today. And that sort of came about by something that I remember my mom and I talking about once. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, and she and my grandmother both taught me everything I know about stitching. But one day I was talking to her about something I had seen. I was talking to her on the phone. Something I had seen, I have no idea what, but the way I was sharing it with her, I guess, really had an impact on her, because her response was, you know, Jackie, just for once, just for a little while, I would really love to be able to see the world through your eyes. And I think she was being both literal and maybe metaphorical with that as I reflect on it. Because, you know, she grew up at a time and with parents who were products of the Depression. And my mom was born in 1939. So, you know, they didn't have a lot when they were growing up, nor did my dad for that matter. But everything that my grandparents and my mom and dad had was really because they made it. And so there was a lot of just, you know, getting by and hand making things. Although today, I think we all feel like that's a luxury, not a necessity. But a lot of her world was very practical, and sewing for her, embroidery, she was an amazing embroiderer. That was just something that was second nature to her. So she didn't think there was anything special about it. And now, of course, and I always thought there was something special about it, but, you know, looking back on it, I appreciate that so much more. But I think what she really wanted was the opportunity to see things differently than they had ever been presented to her before. Colors, shapes, stories, descriptions, just I guess the way that I was describing the thing for her just really made her think about things in a different way. And of course, for me, it's the way I always see things. But to someone else, you know, I take it for granted, but to someone else, it might be really different. So it just really made me think about inspiration and where that comes from for us. Now, like in my intro, obviously, for those of us who stitch, we get inspired by charts that we see or things that other floss tubers are sharing with us, or maybe something we read or hear. But gosh, inspiration is just all around. And so that's kind of what I'm about today. So I do want to just, you know, backtrack just a minute and say how much I appreciate that the meditation meant something to most of you. I am going to do a little bit of just like maybe some mindfulness practice at the end of this video today after we're done with all the things I have to share, which are going to be some updates on my current projects. Yes, you heard that right. Plural, because I had a new start, you guys. I had a new start on something. I've got 2 things going on, not just one. How's that going to work? But anyway, so I've got updates, a new start. I'm actually going to take you on a little bit of a tour to a shop that's right here in the town that I live in that I think is going to blow your mind. You're going to love it. And it's not a needlework shop, but I know many of you out there are multi-crafters, and I just think it's a shop you need to know about. And then I've got a little bit of plans and some stash enhancement or haul. So anyway, those are what we're about today. I realized I hadn't told you a whole lot about me, so I'm going to give you just a little bit more background. I do, like I said before, live in Northwest Missouri, a little town named Weston, which is a very historical town, about 35 miles northwest of Kansas City. And it's a town that a lot of people make day trips to visit, but I have the great privilege of actually living here. And I've lived here for, gosh, over 30 years in a variety of places in town. Outside of town, in town, and now I'm above one of the buildings on Main Street, so historic building. And as I point back there, I'm distracted by the buffalo. I had a couple of commenters ask me if I was going to hang stitching there, and my response was, well, there's already something that hangs there. And I just actually take her down when I'm usually doing my FlossTube filming, because she generally hangs just slightly higher than she is now. And just it usually cuts, the bottom of the frame cuts right behind my head. And so I moved her down today so you can see her. But yeah, maybe that's probably a him as much heft as that guy has, just there munching away in the grass there. And I've seen skies like that out in Montana and Wyoming. Big sky country is true. I've traveled out there several times, and there is so much to see and from. You could be looking in one direction and the sky is sunny, and in the other direction there is a storm coming, and it creates the kind of light that is in that print And I just love that print because I can look at it and I can hear that bison munching. I can hear the breeze in the grass and probably some quiet because I doubt there are any birds singing the way that sky looks. But anyway, yeah, that's what hangs behind me that I usually take down, but I moved a nail down today so you all could see that. So anyway, I am in Northwest Missouri and it's July and it's hot. Thankfully not as hot as it could be. We're actually experiencing kind of a mild summer, but I know that's subject to change probably later today, the way things go around here. And most of my career in life has been as a commercial illustrator. I worked in the greeting card industry. I worked for Hallmark Cards, and then I went on to work for Mary Engelbright, and all of that was about 35 to 37 years total of my life. And then I moved on to work in retail, and that was really due to the economy shifting in the greeting card and social, what did we call it then? Oh, I can't think of the name, but in the greeting card and gift industry. And then I moved into retail. I worked in one of the gift shops here in the town that I live in. I've been a yoga instructor, and currently I work as a bank teller. And that might seem a really odd place to end up. And if you'd asked my mom if she would have ever thought I was going to be in banking, she would have laughed. And that's because she worked in a bank for many years, and we would always joke that I was doing good to keep my checkbook balanced. But thankfully now we have computers for those kinds of things. And, you know, being a bank teller works for me. When I tried to reorder my life about, 5, 6 years ago now, I was missing the opportunity and the time to be able to do any craft or artwork for myself. I was working retail, I was teaching yoga, and while both of those things were very creative, I hadn't made things with my hands in quite a while. And I had a thought one day, an inspiration, if you will, that I really needed to change things, or a very significant and important part of me was in danger of dying. I know that sounds dramatic. And it kind of was. It needed to be in order to wake me up. But I really needed to reorder my life in order to make way for my creative output to be through my hands again. And so I just really needed to step back from the things that I was doing. I moved away from Weston for about 5 to 6 months to the Southwest, where I have some friends. And then circumstances changed again, and I came back. And it was then that I got the job working in the bank. And what I like about it, and the reason I chose to do it, I guess I'll say, is because I was looking for work that had a creative aspect to it. And you might wonder, how does banking have that? But you have to be a creative problem solver all the time with people's money, I'm telling you. And but I wanted a job that I could go to in the morning and feel like I'd accomplished something by the end of the day. And when I left there, that I wouldn't have to think about it afterwards. Everything I had done up until that point, I was thinking about nearly 24/7. I was having to either think about the next deadline, the next assignment, the next holiday, the next class. I really was so forward thinking that I wasn't being present to myself until that deeper part of me said, if you don't start thinking about yourself, something significant within you is in danger. And so I had to listen to that. I've made some significant life changes a few times or maybe they've happened to me and I've had to go along with them. But this one was one that I had to listen to very deliberately and make those changes. So went to work at the bank. I've been doing it for 6 years. It works because when I come home, I have the time to be creative in the ways that are now really fueling me. I'm so enjoying cross-stitching, obviously. That's why we're here today. But there are, other things, quilting, things that I'm listening to, getting the opportunity to see many of you watching FlossTubes. Again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But I have just ideas going on all the time for things that I want to share. So let's get to that. Let's share some things. So first I want to talk about Bridget Powers. That sampler that I've been working on. Let me show you the chart. Bridget Powers, 1840 by Gigi R. This is the antique. On this chart is the antique. And if you've watched my other videos, you know that I've been so intrigued by who is Bridget. And I still don't have it figured out, but I'm actually finding some things out. I put out some feelers, decided to just ask some questions of people who I have crossed paths with over the last year and a half. One of them being Jean Lea, the owner of The Attic, who is a huge fan of Gigi R charts. And so I sent an email to Jean. She's always so accommodating when you see her in person or when you encounter her on her FlossTubes, or if you happen to be in the store and get to talk to her. She's just an amazing little person. But I emailed her and said, hey, do you have any information about this chart? And she wrote me right back and she said, unfortunately, no, but I may know some people. So Jean has emailed a few people. So far, we have come up empty-handed, but she's on a mission for me to try and find out more about Bridget Powers. And Rae Niles of Red Barn Samplers actually reached out to me after my last video. And Rae did a little bit of just very cursory ancestry research in some databases that she has reference to. And I had some notes. Oh, here they are, right here. And what Rae found out was that there are several records of births of Bridget Power in Ireland. Of course, I had been thinking for a while that Bridget Power was such an Irish name, but the sampler didn't really look Irish. But, I did find out too, based on a comment that one of you made, she actually did put her age in this chart. And it is really hard to see. I'm going to show you this. It's down at the bottom. Very hard to read. I doubt you'll see it because I didn't until I actually looked at the chart. It says Bridget Power wrought this sampler in the 13th year of her age in the year of our Lord, 1840. So that would have put her birth at around 1827. And Rae did a little research and found a few entries of Bridget Power or Bridget Powers, because there were a few, like I said, being born in Ireland around 1827, 1829-ish. And then Rae went on to do a little more research and found some immigration records of Bridget Power, 2 or 3 of them, coming to America when she would have been a young adult. We don't know if that was her. Wouldn't it be cool if it was? But we're just trying to fill in a story about who Bridget might be. And the other thing that I think really popped up to me about Bridget was that this sampler just screams that it was a Catholic mass or some event that quite possibly could have been Bridget's confirmation at the age of 13 years. So maybe she made this in commemoration of her confirmation. But anyway, let me show you my progress on her because I've made some. So let me get it here. And I'm going to fold this fabric in half because I haven't gone past the halfway point yet. I have finished the basket of flowers. I'm going to try and see what you're seeing. The light in here is really crazy today because it's so bright outside. And I've had to add some additional light today. But look at those flowers. And I've started the top of the archway that surrounds the altar. And the eagle-eyed among you are going to see some over one stitching. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But those flowers are gorgeous. Let me show them to you one more time. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I know many of you have contacted me on either in the comments or on my Instagram page and said that because you've been seeing this, you have been inspired to pick this chart up too. And a lot of you are just doing the flowers. Totally get that. But if I weren't so interested in and touched by Catholic symbolism, that might not be the right word. I just find it so interesting and so meaningful. Not being Catholic, that might seem weird, but I'm very attracted to Catholic symbolism. So I'm going to continue with the altar and the rest of the chart as you see right here. I'm going to make a couple of alterations. There is a heck of a lot of over one stitching in this altar cloth. I know it's hard to see there, but there are some grape clusters and a monstrance which holds the communion wafer. There is a lot of over one stitching in that. And then there are some tassels around that curtain that are all over one. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to rechart this just a little bit and see if I can keep the spirit of what's here and still make it a little more accommodating, because gosh, that's a lot of over one stitching. And it's not that I don't want to do it. I just think it looks a little compact. There's a difference in the texture when you go from stitching over two threads to over one thread. Things tend to be a little more compressed and almost bunchy looking that I don't really want to see in that altar cloth. So I might do some things differently down there. But this is Bridget Power, 1840. Let me show you these beauties once again. I'm stitching this on 40 count linen, 1 DMC thread, because I'm using the called for colors. So 1 thread over 2 linen threads, and the linen is called Up in the Attic, and it's by Fox and Rabbit Designs. And I do have those flosses here. I've got them on a floss tray. Here, there they all are. I got this tray at Sampler Symposium in January. It was part of a presentation that we had from the amazing Mary Cox. She was instructing us to make a mat, a stitcher's mat, and a needle book, and a little needle case, scissor case, that's what it was, and use this tray, but I'm already using the tray without the Mary Cox editions. So sorry, Mary, but it is working for me. And, I wanted to tell you too, a change that I'm making from the DMC. I was not liking the coverage in the over one up here in where it says Gloria in Excelsis Deo is what happens there. So I thought I don't have any fine or a thinner silk, but I did have some 103 silks from a kit that I got at Sampler Symposium. And I grabbed one of those. It's this one right here. Yeah, it's purple. But on this fabric, it's not showing up as terribly purple in contrast. And that's what I wanted. It has about the same level of darkness as the DMC. It's 3371 there. And this is number 527 silk. And that's working for me, I think. Slightly thinner, I think, than one strand of DMC floss. But that's what I'm using for those over one words. And I'm having fun playing with that. So that's Bridget Power 1840. And that's my progress on that and a little bit that I've learned. So I do still have Jean still working for me and trying to find out some more information. And a friend of mine named Marie, she is Stitches and Diamonds on FlossTube and on Instagram. But Marie is Welsh and she lives in England. I'm not quite sure where, but I know her a little bit from a Zoom stitching group that I'm part of. It's called Across the Pond Stitch and Chat. She hosts that along with Angie, the tiny house stitcher. And Marie also, many of you may have heard of her. She organizes the Stitch in London retreats. And Marie has some connections with a person who is part of the British Sampler Guild, and she has given me the contact information for her. And she's also recommended that I reach out to Michelle of Mama Loves You GB, because both of those people might be able to help me with Bridget Power. And it's not that I want to know so much who she was, although if we could discover who Bridget was, that would be the icing on the cake. But that sampler doesn't look like any British sampler that I've ever seen from the mid-1800s. Usually we're thinking about those samplers with a red house, some very symmetrical plant urns and trees, and a cartouche with some lettering in it, maybe an alphabet or a message, and just so different. So where did the style of this come from? I mean, I would just love to know. I think, just a natural researcher. I love to and play detective to try and find some of this stuff out. So I'm on a quest now to at least find a little bit more information about Bridget. One thing I did find out was that it's definitely not French, because I reached out to Miriam of Couleur Torturelle, who knows a lot about French samplers, and just said, hey, look at this. Is it French? And she said, no. The flower basket is not anything she's ever seen in a French sampler. And she said, even though there are religious symbolism that shows up in French samplers, what's here is not like, again, anything she's seen. So we're going to rule out French. I still think, maybe Mediterranean. I had somebody say maybe Spanish. Who knows what we'll come up with. But I've got a few people who are on the quest along with me now to try and find out a little bit more about Bridget. And I'll keep you updated on whatever I might find out, because it's just kind of a fun little exercise now. And again, it's got my creative brain going. Who's Bridget? We know she was Irish. We know she did this amazing sampler when she was 13. I certainly couldn't have been doing something like that when I was 13. But anyway, I'm just having such a good time. I'm having a blast, really, continuing to work on her. And so next, I actually have a new start. And yeah, I know I've been talking about being a monogamous stitcher, but after my first FlossTube, where I kind of showed you some things that, some charts that I have that of interest to me and that I want to do in the future. Those red ones that I showed you towards the end, just really, I just kept thinking about them. And one in particular. So it was almost like an Irish siren singing to me, like, come over here, you've got to start this. Although she would have been French because I started a French one. And let me show you what I started. First, I want to get Bridget out of the way so she stays clean. I started Antoinette, which was really the biggest, most densely packed of those red samplers that I showed you. So let me get this out of this sleeve that it arrived in. So Antoinette, put on my glasses so I can read. Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. It's this one right here. She's very definitely French. Now I got this from online, from European Reproduction Samplers. And the lady's name who runs that is Sabine Tetera Gundacher, and she's in Berlin. And if you want to look that up on the internet, the website is samplers-berlin.com. And I ordered it through the website. It was very easy to order because it will translate the price, will translate into whatever denomination for whatever country you live in. And then she mailed that to me, and it came in with this corrugated cardboard as a stabilizer in this plastic envelope with all of the stuff inside. And it came very quickly, actually, after I ordered it. And it was fine. The package was intact. There was nothing torn. Everything totally safe to order something from this company. And Sabine actually was very communicative through email, wanting to make sure I received it and that I was happy with it. So this is Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. And let me show you what I did. If you saw my FlossTube number 2, you saw some linen haul that I had from Country Sampler. And I bought some 46 and 56 count fabric. And I think I even mentioned I might have an idea for the 56 count. And the idea was this one. So look at me stitching on 56 count. Let me get that up close. I hope the camera is focusing. 56 count, you guys. 56. And I'm stitching this with, and this is called Shrekie's Tan, by the way, by Needle Bling Designs. And I'm stitching with this with 103 silk. Pull it out of the little bag that I'm keeping it in. Number, everybody's favorite red, I think, 664. Look at that gorgeousness. Isn't it beautiful? Now, the couple of reasons I chose to do this with 103, because I know if you listen to Jean Lea, she likes Soie weight silk on 56 count. Nicola Parkman uses 103 weight on 56 count. And so which one of those ladies do you listen to? But I had 103 that I had already purchased in January when I was at the attic because I knew I had all these red samplers. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to Nicola. And then if I don't like the result, then I'll say, well, Jean says I should do surfing. But I like the result so far. Plus, I had purchased 3 spools of this in January at the attic. But for this chart, looking for the stitch count. It's not readily accessible. Let me see if I can find it. No, but it's a lot. That's really helpful to you, right? It's a lot. I can't find it, but I knew I was probably going to need more than 3 spools for this. And in a kit that we received, 2 kits that we received from Sampler Symposium, 664 was actually included. So that's how I ended up with so many spools of 664. And so that's why I'm using that one. And I also had a chance, I got a little stash enhancement that I'm going to share with you, a vintage hoop. Look at this nice little oval hoop. This is a Gibbs hoop. For those of you who know hoops, it has a little tension spring on the edge in great condition. Found it on eBay for a reasonable price. And so I'm using that and working on this 56 count. So that brings me back to something I wanted to talk about, kind of connecting, if you will, Bridget Powers and where I'm at on that, and this one, picking up 56 count. Have I ever done it before? No. But I thought I could, and I can. And have I done over 1 stitching before? A teeny bit. I did one little area in my big Consider the Lilies sampler where I put my initials in. I did that over 1. That's all the experience I had. But I was pretty sure I could do it because it's just X's, right? And so I'm doing over 1. And I guess the reason I want to talk about this just a little bit is because I hear so many people think, oh my God, it has so much over 1 in it. Or, oh my God, 56 count. How can you do that? And we can do it because we want to. And because we take the time to try, first of all. Don't let your fear get in the way. But then you also get the right tools that you need to be able to do it. I remember, I'm going to bring up my mom again, because at one time she was very sick towards the end of her life. She had cancer and was having a really bad day. And I was trying to cheer her up, and boy, she just wasn't having any of it. But I said to her, I said, Mom, if you think you can't, you know what? You're right. But if you think you can, you're also right. And I think that really speaks to anything that we want to do with regard to our stitching. If you think you can't, you are right. You can't. You won't try even. But if you think you can, you will try, and you might surprise yourself and find out that you actually can. And one thing you need, though, is to have the right tools to do it, because, you know, I would not be able to see 56 count without magnification. I can't see 40 count without magnification. I wear contact lenses, I use readers, and I have a magnifying glass at my stitching chair that has a light, and I use all of that to be able to see what I'm doing. And then you want to have the right needles. Nicola Parkman recommends John James beading needles with a tapestry point on them for 56 count. They are much thinner and go through the holes easier. And however, I have gone back to using my size 28s. I found some size 28 petite needles that I've been using regularly for everything that I stitch. And I really like the way that those feel, and they work on that 56 count. They open up the holes so that the silk flows through it smoothly. And then I use a hoop on that 56 count. I use a hoop on my 40 count. But definitely when you're working on those higher count fabrics, you want to use a hoop to get some tension and be able to open up the holes a little bit in order to be able to see them and to be able to get your needle through them. So if you have the right tools and you have the right mindset, if you think you can, you're right. So I want to encourage those of you who maybe don't choose to try something because, oh, I can't do that, the higher count fabric won't work for me, or if you're wondering, can I make the leap from Aida to linen, you want to try. Nothing wrong with Aida. I'm not bashing Aida stitchers at all. I've been there. I just wanted to try linen when I came back to stitching, so I thought I could, so I did, right into 40 count. I just was pretty sure I could do it. I can sew, I can thread a needle, I can make X's, so why can't I do 40 count? Why can't I do 56 count? Why can't I do over 1? You just try. And you may not be an expert at it right away. You might not feel proficient at it right away. But unless there's a real physical impairment, and there truly might be, maybe your eyesight is, maybe you have glaucoma or macular degeneration or whatever, and there's no way to correct that for you. But if there's a way for you to have the right tools, magnifying glass, to be able to at least give it a try. Don't talk yourself out of it before you've tried it, okay? Promise me. Don't talk yourself out of it before you've tried it. Anyway, so that's my new start. And I was really kind of hoping to work on this. A lot of people do like 1 or 2 red threads a day. And I have found that 1 or 2 red threads is about all the time I have sometimes in a day for stitching. And so that might be all I do on this. But I have found that I can't do 1 or 2 on this and then go to Bridget. I either have to work on this and be monogamous with this, or I have to be monogamous with Bridget. So there's no working on both of them in the same day, really, for me. I tried it, and it just didn't feel good. It just didn't work for me. So I did at least try. So again, those of you who are working on a variety of whips and you go from day to day, do something different, more power to you. It's just not me. But I've got 2 things going now, so, you know, maybe I'll have more in the future. Who knows? I'm not going to rule it out. So anyway, that's what I have for stitching. And so that's what's just been kind of lighting me up, are those 2 things, because there's something to discover in each of those for me. And I made the comment in my last video that I feel like I'm in relationship with what I'm doing. As long as I'm still enjoying the relationship and I'm inspired by it and I'm getting something out of it by continuing to work on those things, I'm going to continue to work on those things. So those are going to be what you see. Doesn't mean I don't have plans or other charts. You'll see I've got a little bit of haul, but those are what's going on. So that's that. Now I want to take you on, let's just call it a little field trip. I told you that I live in Weston, Missouri, and a lot of the shops that are in the town are very interesting and unique specialty type stores. And one that is very close to where I live, in fact, it's just downstairs and around the corner, is a shop called Florilegium. And it's owned by Gretchen and Fred Nutt. Maybe I'll run their name along the screen here as I'm talking about them. But they've actually been in business, I think, since the early 1990s in one way, shape, or form. And Gretchen, I just think she's a creative genius. Anything she turns her hand to, she can do and do extremely well. She's just so full of ideas and inspiration. And her store is that way too. And Gretchen, her husband, Fred, works with her. And they're inspired by antiques and old needlework, beadwork, fibers. Gretchen knits. She hand dyes ribbon. She works with embroidery, the type of specialty stitches that you would do with floss and ribbon that you might see on an antique crazy quilt. And their shop is just so full of inspiration. When you walk in, you feel like you're just have stepped right in to a painter's palette. There's color everywhere, and everything you would want to be able to make anything you want, with the exception of cross-stitch fabric, is in her store. Now, I talk to her about cross-stitch a lot. She and I have become friends. And she's the one who, in my first FlossTube episode, I think I talked about linen, that I was trying to find a teal colored linen for a project, and I hadn't been able to find the right color yet. And that a friend of mine said she would help me dye a color, and that's Gretchen, because she knows how to dye things. She's just never dyed linen before, but she's up to it. She's excited about it. She's going to actually order some 40 count Zweigart linen in, and we're going to, one day when she gets it, we're going to play. But I want to take you on a tour of her store, because even though she is not a cross-stitch store, she's a store that has everything else that you would want. And I know many of you are multi-crafters. You knit, you crochet, you do embroidery, you do needlepoint. The things that she has in her store would be stuff that you want to see. And the one thing she does have that are for us cross-stitchers is she has NPI silks in her store. And she sells them differently than I've ever seen them sold before, because she uses them differently. She uses them for her fancy surface embroidery. And she has the largest size hanks of them, and you can actually buy them by the strand. And she sells them for 42 cents per strand. So if you just need a little bit of one color for something, you can just buy a strand. You haven't made a huge investment in NPI silks. So I had the extreme luxury of being able to, I have a key to their store. They trust me that much. And a little over a week ago, I spent a Saturday morning before they opened with my camera and my tripod, and I did a video tour of the store. And the reason I'm telling you about it now is not only because, like I keep saying, it's an amazing store full of inspiration, but right now they're having a Treenway silk trunk show. And that show started on June 27th, and it runs through July 19th. So they've got Treenway ribbons, pearl size silk threads, and pearl weight, and they also have Treenway stranded silk in the store. And I've taken a few pictures of that. And you think, well, I don't live anywhere near Weston, Missouri, Jackie. How am I going to see this before the show is done? Gretchen and Fred are experts at virtual shopping, and they have a website, and they have a phone that they answer if they're there. Even if they're not there and you leave a message, they'll call you back. Their hours are just Thursday through Saturday in the afternoons, but they are always open by appointment, by special request, and they have, again, just some amazing stuff. So I edited all of those pictures and video that I took into a little about 5-minute tour of the store. So I'm gonna take you there with me, and I really hope you'll enjoy and be inspired by what you're seeing, and either make a trip to come visit or visit their website and just see the amazing stuff that Gretchen and Fred have to share. So we're gonna go visit Florilegium at 327 Main in Weston, Missouri. Wasn't it amazing? I hope you're glad I took you there. Like I said, every time I go into that store, and I know I'm lucky to be living so close to it, and it's actually right downstairs and around the corner is the front door, but to know that all of that beauty, creativity, inspiration is right downstairs, I feel like it's coming up through the floorboards. And she always says the same about me. She said she loves knowing that upstairs I'm working away on something creative too. So we have kind of an interesting symbiotic relationship going on in these buildings that we live in. So once again, I'll tell you that's Florilegium. Gretchen and Fred Nutt are the owners. It is at 367 Main Street in Weston, Missouri, and their hours are typically Thursday through Saturday from 1 to 5. They're open by appointment anytime. Their website is always open, even for those of you who don't live in the United States or anywhere near Missouri. And they do answer their phones, or they will answer voicemail and email too. So if you find something you like and want to know more about, I hope that you will contact Gretchen and her husband, Fred. It's an asset to the town I live in, and certainly an asset to me being in such close proximity. So there is Florilegium. Anyway, let's talk about a little bit of stash enhancement and plans. Got to move some things a little bit closer now. Excuse me while I make a reach across to the other end of the couch and move some things. So the last time we visited together, I talked to you about a stitch along that Somi Sarah and I are going to be doing in December on the solstice on December 21st. Barbara Anna, the Four Seasons. And this is that chart. This we're doing is our version of the Fancy Ladies. And so that chart is available from Barbara Anna on her Instagram. And I will put information in the show notes down below about how to get that. But the reason I'm talking about it is again, not only to just remind you about it. I know December's a ways away, but I'm already excited about this one. And I ordered the threads. They're all DMC. I got those from 123 Stitch. And I'm thinking about, I have it written down. I'm thinking about what fabric I'm going to do this on. So on the Barbara Anna Instagram page, one of the great things about Instagram, if you're on it, if you're not, I would recommend it. I know some people really avoid social media, but Instagram, if you're a person with a hobby like cross-stitching or other hobbies, you have access to so many people who are doing and sharing the same thing that you're doing and wanting inspiration about. But some of the designers too, like Barbara Anna, have access to her. So this chart was originally put out as a kit that you could only get from, I think it's a Russian company called Nitka, Nitka. And I don't remember when that was out. It was several years ago, and then it was not available. You could not find that chart. Maybe you would stumble on one in a stash unloading site or on the secondary market. But that wasn't available until very recently when Barbara Anna started to make some of those older charts available again through her Instagram page. So I reached out to her to find out what the original fabric that was called for was. And she told me it was originally stitched on 32 count natural linen by Zweigart. So, that's easy enough to find. easy enough to get. If you have, you might even have some in your stash. If you want to join Sarah and I, you could use that. But I started seeing each of those girls, each of the ladies, the Four Seasons, just started thinking about them on their own colors. And I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking I'm going to stitch each one on a different colored background. And I don't have every color I'm thinking about yet. I haven't made final decisions, but I showed you in my last video a green grass stain linen that I got that I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. It might be for one of these. It might go on maybe the background for spring or summer. I don't know. I pulled out some linen when I filmed the intro, and this one right here has been a favorite of mine ever since I got it. It's called Eucalyptus by Fox and Rabbit. Gorgeous, gorgeous, light, kind of turquoisey green. I did have a plan for it at the time that I ordered it, and I might still use it for that. I'm going to design a chart that honors my Scotty, Archie, and the Scotty I had before him, Bonnie Rose, and I thought I might put it on this. Still could, but I'm thinking about this for one of the Four Seasons. I do belong to a couple of stash unloading sites on Facebook, and sometimes you can pick up some interesting linen there. I've got a dark blue that's coming, and immediately I thought about this girl for that. And I would change her hair color if I get the dark blue, because I'm not sure there'd be contrast, but until I see it, I don't have it yet. Until I see it, I won't know for sure. And then I've had this kind of weird greeny gold color for a while. This is called Castle Rushes by Seraphim. It's really showing up green here. It's not quite that green in real life. And that might work for this autumnal one. Really pull out the, and be a good complement to the autumnal colors. So those are my thoughts now. I also, had another opportunity to get a little piece of ballet slipper from a gal on Instagram. This is also a Fox and Rabbit. It has a slight pink cast to it. It might work for one of these, I don't know. But my brain is really thinking colored backgrounds for these fancy ladies. So we'll see. So that's why I just wanted to put it on your radar again, because I'm thinking about it, and maybe with me talking about it again, it will inspire you to either purchase the chart or just think about, if you're planning on doing it with us. Aren't they pretty? Gorgeous. Beautiful. There, get them in the light. Again, my light's so bizarre today. It's so bright outside that there was such a glare in my apartment today. I face south here. All of these windows here are south facing, so I've really got this weird glare that comes in. Anyway, so that's the Four Seasons, Barbara Anna. I hope you'll consider joining us. You've got plenty of time to get prepared. Like I said, that's not going to start until December 21st on the solstice, and our plans are to do each of those on the equinox and the solstice. So you got, a quarter of the year to work on one of those. I'm probably going to do all of mine on 40 count just because 40 count fabric is what I have. But you can do it on whatever you want to. Let's see if I can quickly find a stitch count for it. Oh, here it is. Stitch count is 275 by 99. So if that helps as you're thinking about supplies, what you might want to do, if you might want to do this with us, I hope you will. I'm excited. I've never done a stitch along before. I'm inspired by FlossTube and by everyone who I see do a stitch along. I'm inspired to give one a try. And I feel like since the way that we're going to set it up is to work on them quarterly, I feel like I'll have plenty of time to devote to working on one of them at a time and not feel like I'm not spending enough time with whatever else I might have going on also. So I do have just a little bit more in the stash enhancement category to share. Judy from Stitching Bunny, I think, is the one who calls it stash enhancement. It sounds a little bit nicer than haul, don't you think? Like I said, I belong to a couple of stash unloading sites on Facebook. There are a couple of really good ones there that just cater to cross stitch and needlework. And I picked up 2 charts in the time since I've seen you last. The first one is called Cordelia Ransbury, 1847 by Samplers Remembered. Let me see if I can get that. I know it's not the best picture, but this is one that I actually saw a model of when I was at the attic in January. And I took a picture of it. And because something about the color combination, and it's very small, the petiteness of it spoke to me. And then in one of the attic's floss tubes, they were doing a little tour of the store, which they do quite frequently. But I saw it again, and I thought, oh, hey, there's that one that I remember seeing. And it was on the Stash Unload site, so I grabbed that. Stitch count on that is 106 by 150, so it's not huge. And that's Cordelia Ransbury, 1847 by Samplers Remembered. So I picked that up. And then I've always wanted to do these, the Abecedarian Schoolhouse series by Brenda Gervais. I have not purchased all the charts yet. This was just one. This is lesson number 4, so the last one. But here's the rest of them. Oh, let me take this out of the plastic. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pillows, along with a strawberry and a little, what do they call this? Horn book, they call that. So here those are. And this, so I'll be able to pick those up. You can still get them. And, but one thing I've always, when I look at this, in my head, I'm redesigning it already. There's something about the way Brenda Gervais designs her figures that, well, it's very endearing. They're cute. But when I look at this, they're there right in here, these 2 people. I know you can't see their legs, but I look at that and I see Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. I know that might seem weird, but I do. That's what I see them when I look at these figures. And so every time I have seen these charts or somebody working on them, in my head I think, I've got to get those. And I'm thinking about redesigning it to somehow be about Frida Kahlo, who I love. She is just somebody whose story has inspired me for a long time. And I just love her fearless nature, her just being brave in the face of so much adversity. If you don't know, I mean, you've probably all seen images of her because people use her images in a lot of art. But if you've never seen the movie about her, I would recommend that you do. I'm trying to think of who that was. I cannot remember. It was probably 10 or 15 years ago. There was a movie made about her life story. Well worth seeing and hearing about her life, what she had to overcome, how she became a painter and became famous for being a woman painter, was involved in politics, I mean, just an amazing person. And especially since she was in a very tragic and very serious accident when she was young, and she lived through it and became an amazing artist. Kind of a tortured, one of those tortured soul type people, but truly so inspirational. Frida Kahlo. I'm thinking that might end up being something about Frida eventually. So there's that. One of the other things that's inspiring me right now is picking up a little piece of note paper. Look at how cute. Puffins, they inspire me. I love puffins. And I found that at a British import website that I order some things for because I love anything British. England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. I've not been to Wales, but I've been to all the other countries. I just love everything about them. And hopefully I'll get to go again next year. Something for the future planning. It's just in the very early stages, but I'll share more about that later. But anyway, I love British things. They inspire me. British tea is really good. My favorite is Yorkshire Gold. You should get you some. And I want to share a book that a couple of floss tubers that I regularly watch have talked about. Susan Stanley of A Stitch in Time and Karen Combs from Karen Combs Studio have both showed this book. It's called Sewing in America. It's from the DAR Museum. They have an exhibit right now called Sewn in America, Making, Meaning, and Memory. And it's an exhibit all about the history of needlework. And it's everything from very practical, let me turn this around so you can see some of it, garments, and there are some quilts in here, samplers. It's really an amazing book. I highly, highly recommend if you're at all interested in the history of stitching, sewing, just if you're interested in history and women's contribution to the material culture in our history and how it has evolved to be what it is today, I highly, highly recommend this book. And in Karen Combs' latest FlossTube, she was talking about a virtual talk that is going to be given by the curators of this exhibit. And that's going to be on August 13th. It's a Tuesday at 11 o'clock Central Time. There's a virtual presentation. And I have signed up for it. I'm not sure that I'll be able to attend because I'll be working, but I'm really hoping that they record it and that I'll be able to see. I've emailed the director of the museum or the person in charge there to find out whether or not they'll record it. So I'm hoping so. If not, I might have to take an early lunch at work that day so I can see part of this. And then also I was able to find, and I mentioned to Karen, I was able to find a couple of videos, video tours of the exhibit on YouTube. So I'm going to try and I'll link to all of that in the show notes below so that if that's something that's of interest to you, that you would be able to learn more about. And then the other thing that is inspiring me right now is all of you. There are a lot of floss tubers that I watch regularly, like anytime a new episode drops, as soon as I can, I try and turn them on. I'm inspired by those of you who are writing to me, commenting to me, who comment on videos, comment on things in Instagram and send me private messages. Thank you again for that. But I want to share with you some floss tubers that I don't miss. You may already know many of them, and there are certainly, this is not, this is a non-exhaustive list, although it might exhaust me to read it to you. But there are plenty of others out there that I watch as well. But these are the ones who, like I said, when they drop a new episode, they're on my watch list. So I want to tell you about them. Some you'll know, maybe some are new to you or that you haven't watched in a while, so you'll want to go check out again. Of course, there's Brenda and Laura, Brenda in the Serial Starter. Sarah Stitchy Spot. As I mentioned, Karen Combs Studio. There's Sarah, who I'm doing the stitch along with, Sew Me Sarah. Kim, Contented Needleworker Kim. They're Pam and Steph, Just Keep Stitching. Love those two. I wish my mom was still around to be able to talk stitching with, but I wasn't cross-stitching again while my mom was still alive. I think about what would she think about me doing this? She'd probably wonder, why do people want to talk about this? But I think she'd probably secretly be proud too, and probably wish she had the bravery to sit in front of the camera. So anyway, Pam and Steph, love them on Sunday nights. They're my must-see TV, must-see FlossTube, Just Keep Stitching. I always watch Jean and Carolyn when they drop a new FlossTube from the Attic Needlework. Jean, so inspiring, Miss 56 count. Somebody in a FlossTube, I said, there must be like 56 count fumes in that store. I think Jean has magic pixie dust that she spreads around there to make everybody think, yeah, 56 count, 46 count. I can do that. Yes, you can. So I'll sprinkle a little Jean magic dust and say the Attic Needlework, Jean and Carolyn, and all the ladies at the Attic. Love their floss tubes. I like Michelle from Mama Loves You GB and Nicola, Hands Across the Sea. Nicola started to release her videos on Saturdays. She used to do Sunday, and Michelle does Sunday, so I watch them with my Sunday morning coffee. And then my friend Shelly, Antique Needleworkers, Catherine from Stitching and Costume, Susan Stanley, who I mentioned, Stitch in Time. I love the kinds of things that she presents because she takes a real historical flair to what she's sharing. She's right now focusing on the 1870s, which is a time that I really appreciate. This building that I live in, and many of the buildings in the town I live in were built prior to that. And this town was very highly populated. In fact, I think right now it has 1,600 people. At one time it had 5,000 people, probably around that time. It was one of the last places you could get off a boat traveling down the Missouri River before it headed west, where there wasn't much beyond this town. So it's a time period that really feels very familiar to me. It has for a long time, but then living in this town and in this space I'm in, the 1800s, Susan Stanley talks about them a lot. And she's working on some English paper piecing right now and has kits available. And she kind of weaves a story right now about two young girls, one named Corliss. I can't think of the other one's name, but how each of them are learning about sewing and stitching in their own way as they would be influenced in what tools and resources they might have available to them in the 1870s. So I find Susan really fascinating. I love the Curious Crafters, Carolyn and Anna. Love them. They're probably most like me and my sisters because we were always curious how to make stuff when we were growing up. We just learned how to make stuff. You didn't go buy stuff, you made stuff and you just figured it out. So they remind me a lot of my sisters and I. And then lastly, I want to mention Judy Stitching Bunny. I love her. You need to go watch Judy too. And then, of course, there are other ones. I'll try and mention more in the future. Those are my must-sees. And then there are lots of other ones. Celeste Creates, Beck Stitches Everything, the Potty Mouth Stitcher, love her, Sable Stitchers, so many. So we've got an embarrassment of riches out there with floss tubes, you guys. So many. So many. But then I also wanted to tell you about 3 YouTube channels that never fail to inspire me. And I hope that you are taking advantage of the depth of what's available on YouTube. You know, maybe it's a video you need to learn how to fix your plumbing, or how to, I don't know, if you got a screw loose somewhere and you need to fix it, you can find that on YouTube. But there's so much on YouTube, and there are 3 different YouTube channels that I do not miss that I want to tell you about. One of them is related to stitching. The other 2, nothing at all related to stitching, but I don't miss them because I am always inspired and enriched by them. The first one is called the Pethricks, Pethericks, the Pethricks. It's a British family, mostly a young man and his family. His name is Billy, and he's got his brother there, his dad there, a variety of friends. Billy's married to a French woman, and they live in France. And they have renovated a French chateau. That's a whole genre on YouTube. Everybody rehabbing a French chateau. But Billy and his family have renovated a French chateau. And a couple of years ago, he got a wild hair to buy an abandoned convent in the French town, not too far away from the chateau. And nuns lived there for a long time. Then it became a hospital, I think, and it was abandoned for some 10 plus years maybe, and they're renovating it. And, you know, yeah, the Catholic Church aspect, the convent aspect of it immediately attracted me. But just the amazing things that family knows how to do, construction-wise, and what they don't know how to do, they know people who do know how to do it. Or, again, they know how to research things and will attempt to do it, figure it out. I mean, like just a few months ago, Billy bought a pipe organ that was being decommissioned in England. He and his family and some friends of his went to England. They tore down the pipe organ, brought it back to France, and reassembled it in the chapel that's at the convent that they are renovating. Did they know anything about how to take down and put back together a pipe organ? No, they did not. But they figured it out, and they asked the right questions, and they planned for it. And it was just amazing to watch that all come together. They're amazing family. So that's the Pethricks. And then the Stitcher one that I think you all might appreciate is a young gal named Bernadette Banner. And she's American, right now living in London, but she is a clothes historian. And she makes historic clothes. She wears historic clothing, and it's just her passion. She's done done costuming for Broadway before. I'm not sure why she's in London. She's always kind of vague about what she's doing there, but she is making some amazing clothing. She sews a lot by hand. She has a book called Make, Sew, and Mend that if you want to learn how to sew things by hand would be a good resource for you. She just had her most recent FlossTube, I think, dropped last night, and she worked with some people to make a 18th century men's embroidered waistcoat. She worked with the Hand and Lock Company in London, who have done embroidery for royalty before, and worked with them to figure out how to make a 17th century fully embroidered, like, court waistcoat, floral embellishment, sequins, beads, in order to make something that looked historically accurate, but how to bring that into the present. They digitized some of it, did some of it with an embroidery machine, and then used hand embellishment, gold bullion, like I said, sequins, pearl beads. I mean, it was just so fascinating, and I really enjoy anything that Bernadette Banner does. She puts together a video like it's a short film, and I really appreciate also the film, what's the word I want to use? The way she edits things, the production quality, that's what I'm trying to say. I appreciate her production quality to everything she does. So that's Bernadette Banner. And then lastly, a young man who I've been watching for a while. His name is Rajiv Surendra, Surendra. And I'll put, like I said, links for all of these people in the show notes. But Rajiv, I believe, is of Indian heritage. He lives in New York City, and he's a guy who just figures things out too. He lives what I would like to say is a very intentional life. He thinks about things. He learns how to do things and finds pleasure in even doing mundane things like cleaning, writing a letter. He's a calligrapher and does really fancy Spencerian style script and everything in between. He does sign rendering in New York, but he kind of, I guess the best way to describe him would almost be a male version of Martha Stewart. And by that I mean he's competent and wants to do things thoroughly and in the best way possible. He makes pottery. He has studied with a guy named Guy Wolf for years to learn how to make pottery that you throw on a wheel in very classic shapes. He plays the harp. He's learning how to play the harp. Beautiful harp player. He is a watercolorist. He's learning. He takes classes on whatever he wants to learn to do. So he's a watercolorist. He just learned how to make a type of gold chain from a jeweler that is traditional to his heritage. He learned how to do that. He seeks out the best way to do things and how to do them in a traditional way, and learns how to do them, and then is just presenting them as, you know, here's what I'm doing. Maybe it will inspire you to do something that you've always wanted to do. And, oh, he also loves antiques. He sometimes will take you on trips to antique malls. Recently, he went to Brimfield, the Brimfield Art Fair or Antique Fair, and just, he makes soap. Anyway, he's a really inspiring young man that I think some of you might enjoy, Rajiv Surendra. So those are just things that are inspiring me today. Endlessly inspired by you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to now not necessarily do a meditation again in the way that I did it last time, but I'm going to just give us an opportunity to maybe sit, and I'll play the sound of stitching because it's kind of the rhythmic quality of that sound of stitching that I've been playing underneath the meditation kind of helps organize and regulate breathing. But in that little tour through Florilegium that I took you on, I took a shot of a card that is kind of a motto for Gretchen. And it was a card with a lot of words on, and it starts out with, "This is your life." I have a still image that I'm going to put on the screen here in a moment, but I'm going to read this to you. And as I read it to you, I just want you to really take in the words, because I think there are times in our lives when we all feel maybe less than inspired. Maybe we're feeling down, for instance, or we feel like life is too much, or we're so busy. It's the summer. A lot of people just have activity after activity after activity, and they don't feel like they can slow down. But I'm going to ask you to slow down right now and just listen again. And I'm going to read the words from that card to you. It was entitled This Is Your Life. It was the Holsti Manifesto, which is 3 guys from New York started this Holsti Manifesto. They just wanted to write down some thoughts to create something for when they were feeling stuck, and it's been shared widely on the internet. And my friend Gretchen keeps greeting cards down there that have that on. And for a while, I don't know that she still has them. Part of it was on this canvas shopping bag that I got. So This Is Your Life. And I'm going to read that to you. So first, like I said, I'm going to put that image up on the screen. So I just want you to kind of take it in and let yourself settle down in the chair that you're sitting in. And take at least 1, 2, 3 slower and deeper breaths to help you settle. This is your life. Do what you love and do it often. If you don't like something, change it. If you don't like your job, quit. If you don't have enough time, stop watching TV. If you're looking for the love of your life, stop. They will be waiting for you when you start doing things you love. Stop overanalyzing. Life is simple. All emotions are beautiful. When you eat, appreciate every last bite. Open your mind, arms, and heart to new things and people. We are united in our differences. Ask the next person you see what their passion is, and share your inspiring dream with them. Travel often. Getting lost will help you find yourself. Some opportunities only come once. Seize them. Life is about the people you meet and the things you create with them. So go out and start creating. Life is short. Live your dream and share your passion. So we're going to sit for, maybe a minute or so, letting those words really settle into you. Maybe there was something that stood out to you there, something you've been longing for. Allow yourself to be inspired by those words. If you've been sitting quietly with me, please take a few deeper breaths. If your eyes drifted closed, you can open them up. Just flutter your eyes a little bit and look around the room, reorient yourself in your space. I hope you've been inspired a little bit today by 1 or maybe 2 things I've shared. Thank you so much for everything you share with me. You're endlessly inspiring to me, and I hope to see you again on our next visit together. So take care. Bye-bye.